If I could go to you, Nir. So now it's become fashionable to say that geopolitics is material to business and that it is really driving a lot of business strategies. Is it true? Then if it's true, are developments that we're seeing, for example, this week here, really materially impacting how you make your business decisions?
So the short answer is yes, big time. And let's step back for a second, because I think you have to kind of process everything beyond what's happening here this week. You know, at Bridgewater, our goal is to understand how the world works. This is what we've been doing for the last 50 years. And we'd say that we're going through probably the most dramatic period of change that we will go through in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. It's one of those periods of change that happen once in 100 years, basically. You can split it in many different ways. Let's just cut it in two, because it's kind of what the conversation has been here about. One is geopolitical, macro 180, basically. Going from decades and decades of globalization, we're kind of marching down that path, and then in a minute, turning around to what we call at Bridgewater modern mercantilism, which is instead of being focused on globalization and efficiency, being focused on self-sufficiency, national interest. It's just a whole new architecture. Mm-hmm. Dramatic change. It's happening at the same time where we're going through a technological disruption that is hard for us to process. And I'm not even talking about the speculation of what's going to happen with productivity. I'm talking about what's happening now. We're in the middle of a technological arms race. The biggest powers in the world, nations and companies, are spending like their lives depend on it. Mm-hmm. And those two things are already the main drivers of markets. So one could look from the far and say, well, it doesn't look like it's changing, but it's changed tremendously. If you look under the surface, what's happening really is that the one phenomenon is currently offsetting the other, meaning the impact of modern mercantilism, the tariffs, the questioning of US exceptionalism is being offset by policy, expensive monetary and fiscal policy, but more than anything, a massive capex cycle, the biggest that we've ever seen. And just to give you a taste of it, under the surface, look, if you look at last year, I heard many times people say, look, but the S&P, it all looks the same. It's not the same. Mm-hmm. The S&P did well in dollar terms. Mm-hmm. In global currency terms, it was the first time in 15 years that the US equity market underperformed global markets, meaning it was the first time that it didn't pay off to be completely concentrated in the US. Another great example is gold. Mm-hmm. People talk about kind of the gold rally. Gold has doubled since 2024, but when you ask yourself why, what it really means is that people that were holding their wealth in either dollars or dollar-denominated assets don't feel safe enough to be that concentrated, and they're migrating to gold in a massive way. And lastly, a lot of conversation over the last couple of days about the strong top-line US GDP numbers. They're strong, but underneath the surface, more than half of that number is that capex arms race. You take that out, it's sluggish. So kind of the people not processing what is really driving the economy, it's exactly what everybody here is talking about. It's secular forces that combine policy and economics much more currently than kind of the boom-bust cycle that we used to be, inflation, growth. And it's here to stay. It's only going to get bigger, I think, over the next couple of years.
Are you saying that, because you were implying that we should be looking beyond just the GDP growth numbers, so are you saying that there are headwinds that we may be not pricing in right now, not only with regard to the US economy, but overall with regard to the world economy?
Yes, I'm saying that to be a good investor now, you have to wrap your head around these secular changes. You have to ask yourself, the world is transforming from a globalization macro framework to a different one. How is that going to work? What is Europe going to do? What is China going to do? What is the US going to do? It's happening at the same time that they're all battling a must-win technological battle. What is that going to do? That is today the single most important thing you have to wrap your head around, and it's a massive change. If we were sitting here 2 years ago, people would be talking about inflation. Is it going to be inflation? It's not going to be inflation. What's going to happen with growth and not growth? They wouldn't be talking about these things. So, yes, that is a dramatic change and something that the entire financial sector is extremely focused on right now.
Could I go to you, Nir, as well on China? There is a lot of interest in understanding the Chinese economy from an investor's lens. How would you evaluate it? Is it more investable than 2 years ago, less investable?
So I'll make two comments because I also want to refer back to some of the comments that have been said here before about the Middle East. But I would say two things are important to keep in mind. What happened? The way we got here is the entire world was on a path to globalization, like I said before. China was always playing a different game. China was always playing the game of a state-driven economy where protecting national interests. In one way, we're all now playing China's game. The conversion is kind of, and it's classic game theory, where you need everyone to collaborate because it's enough that one person is, trying to stick it to others or just working within their self-interest, and the entire game starts to shift. So they're better at playing this because they've been playing this for a long time and pretty successfully. That's kind of one thing to keep in mind. And then on whether it's investable, I would say China and Asia more broadly play an incredibly important role in people's portfolios, and they're almost always underweight for many, many reasons. So in a world that is fragmented, that has such US concentration, which is built up over decades, China is actually, and again, broader Asia, is one of the best diversifiers that you can have. Bridgewater has been in China for 40 years, including onshore. We're the largest foreign manager onshore. So definitely investable, definitely plays an important part in people's portfolios. Can I make one more comment on the things I've said before? It's going to shift to a different topic. I have to. First of all, on the history lesson on the Middle East and Israel, the UN made decisions in 48 that were contested not by Israel that started this entire fight. So the way to work through our differences, which are important because I totally agree on the suffering is terrible. Also the suffering of October 7th, the suffering of hostages that have been held for years, and the suffering in Gaza, terrible. We can't always choose to start the conversation from the place that's most comfortable to us. And to step back, I'd say that about the world more broadly a little bit, because these changes are so massive. The biggest question is not whether things are going to change, it's how are we going to come out of this on the other side? It's going to be better or it's going to be worse. Yeah. And I would go to the 1930s, not because it's the same, but because these changes happen once in 100 years. I think it's a good way to kind of look at, we had disenfranchised people and disenfranchised nations that made political choices to challenge the world order. By the way, we had a backdrop of a technological race for nuclear capabilities that promised world dominance and ability to set the new world order, and it ended with Bretton Woods and the nuclear bomb and the end of the World War, and started an era that lasted up until now. Because what's happening now is, again, disenfranchised people within nations, disenfranchised nations, are saying, I'm going to make political choices that are going to change the world order. Again, we have the backdrop of a technological arms race that promises world dominance and the ability to set the next world order. And the question about whether this is going to end up in a massive war, I'm the grandchild of a grandmother that lost her entire family in the Holocaust, is up to the people here in Davos. Are we going to manage it well, or are we going to let it get out of control? And for that, we both have to put each other in each other's shoes and say, we owe this to so many people that rely on us. Not to just argue our position, but to say, how do we manage through change well?